This case was filed by the estate of Andrea Tellez Rojas by her personal representative, Yadira Tellez Rojas. We call her the plaintiff. The case was filed against the Hillsboro Pediatric Clinic, who we call the defendant.
My name is Yadira, and this is very hard for me to tell everybody. If anybody knows me, my personal life, I like to keep private, but this is actually something that is really important to tell, especially because I believe that healthcare needs to have a change. So, this is a story about what happened to my sister. Her name is Andrea, and basically, what happened to her, and after her saying her healthcare providers why everything that happened was misses and it being unsafe and it being negligence, going through a lawsuit, having all of the trauma and going through that, and just really kind of seeing why things won't change is also important for me to share. And then everything that I learned and why I really think that all of this can help anybody learn, whether you're a patient or you're a healthcare provider, or just in general, whoever's going through anything that has ever felt like unheard or felt like an injustice. Listen to my story, and hopefully this will give you some kind of peace or motivation to just speak out. Let me just start out actually by talking about my sister and my family. So Andrea, she was this really amazing little girl. She was the youngest of us, so we were 6 girls. It's my sister Sandra, then it's me, Yadira, then it's Brenda, then Jasmine, Evelyn, and then the youngest one was Andrea. I was about 16 when she was born, so she was pretty much not only our younger sister, but also basically our child. And she was just this amazing little girl who she would always do what she was told, as far as if my mom said, hey, go do this, versus some of us who would not do our chores or do our homework, or she would always give you hugs. I remember that. She would always give you hugs. But yeah, so always smiling, and pretty much just always being laughing and kind. And so that's something that she's always gonna I'm always gonna keep. August 5th, which was I think a Wednesday, Tuesday. So that day, my sister goes to Hillsboro Pediatrics, and she sees a provider named Kelsey Jomas. We're gonna find out later that she is a newer nurse practitioner. I think she had just graduated from OHSU. I think that December, got her license in January, and I don't know, how long she'd been working there, because I'll tell you right now that everything that's said in trial, I am not believing, and you'll know later on why. So she had worked less than 8 months, 8 months or less, being a nurse practitioner. So she saw my sister August 5th, 2020. And my sister at the time, I think, had coughing, sore throat, intermittent fever, abdominal pain, I want to say. And, they do a COVID test, they give home care, and it sounds like they gave some recommendations if she doesn't get better, come back next week, make an appointment. So, and later on, I think she gets a little worse. So Brenda, my sister, who the third sister, the third oldest sibling, she had taken my sister Andrea to her first appointment. And Brenda, from what Brenda told me, Andrea was writing down her symptoms in a notebook. We also had a blood pressure cuff at home that she would take, and she took it to the appointment, because Andrea, even though she was 13, she impressed me with her health. And so the first appointment COVID's negative. There's, Andrea is still in bed and recommendations for home care, fluids. And later that week, I want to say on a Saturday or Sunday, she starts to get a little worse. And she starts to vomit, and I think her headache got worse. I forgot what else, but so she starts vomiting, and Brenda calls the advice line, and they give her two options: take her to the ER or primary care triage, PCP triage. So my sister, she was going to take her to, there's a Randall Children's Urgent Care. And at some point, so Andrea takes her, Brenda takes Andrea, and Andrea starts to feel a little better. And unfortunately, Randall's Children's Hospital or Children's Urgent Care was closed by the time they got there. I think they closed a little early because of during the pandemic. So at that time, Andrea feels a little better, and Brenda and Andrea decide, you know what? Andrea had said, I don't feel sick anymore. She was no longer vomiting. It sounded like she just felt better. So they went home. She kept drinking Gatorade, and they took her to urgent care the next day. And they see another nurse practitioner named Tammy Winchell. It sounds like this nurse practitioner has a little more experience. But it sounds like they come up with the same recommendations, which is, fluids. I think they looked at her ears to make sure she didn't have ear infection, and make sure they did a swab test to make sure she doesn't have strep throat. And they told her to follow up with her primary care physician if she didn't feel better. And it sounds like that was the plan. So they go back to Hillsboro Pediatrics. By this time, Brenda had gone back to work. So my mom was going to be the one taking her to the August 12th appointment. And so she took Andrea, and Andrea had continued with vomiting. At this point, she was lightheaded and dizziness, and she had headaches. She had body aches. She wasn't eating well. Still had intermittent fevers as high as 103. And so they see her. They don't find anything out of the ordinary or and they send her to labs. The nurse practitioner, Kelsey Jo Moss, that saw her that last day. So she sees her August 5th, August 12th, and they send her to labs, and they were going to put in Zofran because she had been vomiting. So my mom, because she doesn't speak English very well, and she was wanting somebody to help her with basically taking my sister Andrea to the labs. So they didn't have a lab in the Hillsboro Pediatric Clinic, but about a minute or two driving wise, a few blocks away down the street, there was a hospital, Tuality Medical Center. Hillsboro Medical Center used to be Tuality. And my parents didn't live too far away from either of those. So it was like a triangle. They lived, less than 5 minutes from the hospital or from the clinic. So my mom, because she's nervous and she's, a little scared, she calls my sister Jasmine, who had been home at the time. I think she was a senior or a junior at Oregon State. And so she basically calls her saying, hey, they're going to send us to lab. Can you help me so that we can take her to lab? And so they pick up my sister Andrea, and they pick up my sister Jasmine, and Andrea is, still not feeling well. And they basically arrive to the lab, and Andrea starts to vomit a little more at this time. And it sounded like my mom asked whoever at check-in if they can get an emesis bag. And during the blood draw, it sounded like, from what I heard from Jasmine later, she was feeling worse. She was feeling anxious. She was breathing a little hard. It sounded like she was asking them when the results were going to go in, we're going to come back. And after the blood draw, my sister threw up a little more, and it sounded like my mom had the emesis bag that they gave, and she was vomiting in front of the lab lady, and it sounded like she was training somebody. It's really important to note that they were about to close. The lab tech had told my sister Jasmine that they were going to close. They were the last patients they were going to see. Why is this important? Because that was the last time that my sister walked. She came in walking, and she left in a wheelchair. Now, what really angers me is that my sister Jasmine had told the lab tech that my sister didn't look good and that my sister had a hard time walking. And then she also asked if she could get a wheelchair. Now, the lab tech or techs, I don't know who it was, but they basically said, "Oh, you can go get the wheelchair." And because I think it was in the bottom floor. That still angers me right there. That was your opportunity to ask, "Hey, what's wrong?" So she sends my sister Jasmine to get the wheelchair. My sister is wheelchaired out. And so that's actually when then they go to the pharmacy. They had gone to the Hillsboro Pediatric Clinic first. Then they went to the pharmacy. And then they went, I'm sorry. I'm trying to clarify it because it all comes to my head all at once, and I just want to scream out all the events. So I do apologize if this gets confusing. So first, they go to the pharmacy. They go to the appointment. My mom and Andrea. Then they get sent to the lab, and my sister Jasmine. That's when she gets picked up. And then after the blood draw is drawn, where my sister Andrea can't walk anymore, that's where they were going to go pick up the pharmacy, the medication. They were going to go to the pharmacy at CVS Pharmacy to pick up the Zofran. From what I can recall, my mom had told, my mom had stayed with my sister Andrea because she didn't want to get down. She was basically asking all these questions. When are we going to go home? So Jasmine gets down to the pharmacy to get the medication, and the Zofran isn't available. We have our pharmacy on file. My sister, we've only gone to that pharmacy for as long as I can remember because we used to go to a different pharmacy, but that one closed. Well, when I was in high school. So I'm in my mid-30s. So we had our pharmacy on file. Unlike what the visit note said. And so they get home. At some point, Andrea's basically calling everybody or trying to get everybody to, I'm getting texts, I'm getting missed calls because I'm at work and I can't pick up my phone. Andrea wants to see you. Andrea wants to see you. And then it sounded like she was just trying to call all of our cousins, anybody she knew. She was basically having a feeling of doom. I can only imagine how scared she was. If she's trying to call everybody, she's trying to call me, she's trying to call anybody. And keep in mind, my mom was never told to go to the ER. My mom is thinking, I just took her to the doctors. So she's a nurse practitioner, but she just went to the clinic. They're not telling her anything that's wrong. Then they go straight to the lab, which what's even worse is that the lab is actually right across the street from the emergency room. I'll put a picture up because it's literally right across the street. It's so close. So it's easy for anybody who doesn't work in healthcare thinking, I just went to the hospital and my daughter, who's clearly sick and unable to walk, she's getting discharged. She's getting, sent home. Imagine how, imagine just, I'm sure my mom thought, she's having all of these thoughts, but I'm putting myself in her shoe thinking, I don't really speak English. Like I can't keep up a conversation. I can't communicate, but I went to the doctors to take my daughter. They said she's fine, or they didn't tell her anything. Then they go straight to even though it's in a hospital building, it's in the hospital. It's right across from the ER. If I didn't work in healthcare, I would think I'm in the hospital. I'm by the ER, and then to get sent home, you start to wonder if, who wouldn't start to wonder, is it all in my head? Am I just overreacting? Do I think, am I, like I can imagine what my mom's thinking. She's thinking, she just went to all these places and nobody ever said, what's wrong with your daughter? And so flash forward, they get home. My sister, she doesn't want to get out of the car, but she's too weak to get out of the car. So at some point, my sister Sandra, who was living with my parents at that time, she gets home from work and she sees that Andrea is in the driveway, and my mom basically tells Sandra that she didn't want to get out of that Andrea didn't want to get out of the car. My uncle Miguel, he lives next door, and it sounded like he went to go see them, and they also were thinking that my sister needed to go to the ER. I am gonna put I interviewed somebody very important to this, but we had somebody else that saw what was going on, and they were trying to get my sister to go to the ER. Now, the reason why I explained what my mom might have been thinking is also keep in mind that my sister, as smart as she is, she's 13 and she's dying. Anybody who's ever had a heart attack or kidney stones, or I've had sciatic pain in the past. Anybody who's just been in really bad pain, or flu, anybody who's had a man cold, tell me, even with all of your smartness or your IQ or your however you are normally, how do you think you are on your deathbed, or you're pretty much when you are just bedridden? Do you think you're going to be with it and being able to make judgments that you can when you're perfectly fine? So all of these people who didn't see what happened to my sister in any of the settings with the clinic or the hospital or the lab or the pharmacy, they don't know why Andrea maybe said no, or why my mom maybe wasn't as concerned as other people were. And that angers me so much. And you'll find out later why. There is no justice in not explaining to your patients, if you have a concern, conveying something to them. It is our job to provide the education and quality care for these people. So, my sister says no. My Andrea says no, I don't want to go. Get off work August 12th, 2020. And all I know is that my sister went to Hillsboro Pediatrics, and that she went to lab, and that my sister is just wanting to see me. Andrea wants to see you. Andrea wants to see you. I didn't even ask why or how. I just figured I haven't seen my family in a while. At that time, I think it'd been a month since I'd seen them. So I figured, okay, I'll go after work. And because I hadn't seen them in a while, I figured I wanted to stop at Fred Meyer, which was on the way home. And I like to sometimes just take groceries or take things that can help out my family, or just, and since Andrea was sick, I figured maybe I should go take something to her where it's like I think I had got at the time I said, oh, okay, she was sick. Um I got her popsicles. I think I bought like yogurt. But I wanted to take something that she could hug because I know she had a little stuffed dog that she had showed me a few months prior that they gave her, I think, for Christmas. And so I just thought, let me just go to the like plushie section, and I got her. I think it was a dog. I it was a dog or a bear, whatever it was a stuffed animal. So then my dad knew that I was coming home. He had asked me to go look at some boots with him because he was a truck driver. And so when I saw Andrea, I think it might have been like 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. It was bright, like it was a hot day because it was August in Oregon. And basically when I went into my parents, once I got there back from my dad and I had gone to the store. It was after Fred Meyer. All I remember is seeing Andrea in my mom's car in the driveway, and Brenda was in the passenger seat, and I got this like feeling of like doom or like anxiety, and I just Andrea, the first thing that she said to me was, "You didn't come to see me," but like in an angry way, like she was mad at me, and I said, "Andrea, I'm sorry." So then my mom, I wanted to go figure out what was happening because I didn't really. All I knew was that she went to the doctor's earlier that day, and then she went to lab. So when I went to go ask my mom what happened, she gets a call, and she says that they're gonna call me regarding labs. So I asked my mom if I could talk to whoever's on the phone because I wanted to figure out what's happening, because my mom looks stressed, or she just looks sad. And the way Andrea talked to me, she never talked to me before because she was always happy. I'm sorry. Okay. So, anyways, um, shortly after that, we had to take her to the ER because her heart stopped. We did bring her back, but I'll talk in detail later about what happened in the ER because that was also very traumatic. Very traumatic. Um, so fast forward, my sister, my sister was gone, and all I could think about was how. That was my immediate response. How? How did this happen? As sad as I was, and shocked as I was, it was how. So at some point after my sister's funeral, it was hard to ask my mom what happened and any of my siblings just because of the shock and pain. Um, but I gave it some time because I wanted to know what happened, you know, and especially in healthcare. So I asked Brenda first to tell me, what Andrea was experiencing throughout the time she was sick. And then I asked her because Brenda had taken her to her first appointment, and then I asked, at some point my mom, and all of these red flags I kept raising up because when I asked my mom about if she had an after visit summary, I wanted to see, what the recommendations were and what, you know, what the plan was and what her vitals were. My mom said that they didn't give her an after visit summary, and I said that is weird. Like, and I asked my mom, did they tell you that they thought she needed to be hospitalized, or that they thought that, did they ever tell you that she might need to go to the ER, or that there, any sign of like this is an emergency? And my mom goes, no. I also want to say that it was hard to ask her at first because everything was, anybody that's gone through grief, it's like my mom was immediately like, I should have known, or why didn't I do this and that? And it's like, I really wanted to tell my mom, it's not your fault. So I had to wait a little bit to really ask her and Brenda what happened. And so when she told me that they didn't give her an after visit summary, I was really, really taken aback, because if somebody is thinking that somebody might need to go to the ER, at least for me, you need to explain to them, hey, this is what my concern is. And then you write it down for them, or the after visit summary should have explained to them what the concern was. So then my immediate next thing was, I need to look at the records. I need to look at the notes, because the math ain't mathin'. Something is not right. Something in my gut is telling me it's not adding up. Why was my sister in a clinic, then in a lab, same day, and a few hours later she's gone? So I asked my mom if she could sign the release of information so that I could get the records, and she did. And as painful as it was, I needed to know. So we submit the records, and we get the after visit summary. I also ask for the visit notes from the very first appointment, which was at Hillsboro Pediatrics, which was, I think, a week before. So it would have been August 5th. And then I asked for the visit notes for the day my sister died, which was August 12th. And more red flags are just popping in my head immediately. The next one I could think about was there was no interpreter for my mom. I even asked my mom at some point, like when she was telling me that they said that they didn't tell her that she needed to go to the ER, they were concerned. I asked her who she saw. She didn't know the name of the person, and I asked her if they got an interpreter, and she said no. I was in my head immediately just, how easy it is to get an interpreter. I just want to say that it's easy. But in the in the visit notes from, and I'm going to put it up so everybody can see, in the visit notes from August 5th versus August 12th, even though it's supposed to be the same type of appointments, they look completely different. So the visit notes from August 12th are so thorough. So it is 8 pages long, with the script, the font size being a lot smaller compared to 3 pages long for the first appointment. And immediately before I even looked through it and seeing the difference of the length that the visit notes were, the immediate thing was the plan of discharge. Immediately what drew me here was plan comment. So where it says patient present with 10 days intermittent fever, has not had one every day, blah, 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 blah. Like I was reading through it. It's still very important to me. But then I skip here to where it says discussed with family, labs versus ED. A little dash, opted for labs. Urgently, immediately following clinic visit. Dash, strongly advise that if at any point patient feels worse, any symptoms are occurring more often, or develop symptoms, to head immediately to the ED. So, discussed with family, labs versus ED. And my mom said she never heard that. She was never told to go to the hospital. And my mom felt so guilty, because at some point it's like, the responsibility is not my mom's. If a provider does an assessment and they think that they need to go to the ER, you need to explain that to the patient. So when I finally talked to my mom and was able to have a conversation with her, she said that she never heard go to the ER, or else she said, I would have sent my daughter to the ER if there was any concern. And the next part that was just angering to me before I even figured out what was happening, it says opted for labs. So if I were to write something and I thought that somebody needed to go to the ER, I would first explain to them what my concern was. And I would document that. I would say, discuss with patient option A versus B, discussed symptoms, if got worse, blah, blah, blah. Patient verbalized understanding, agrees to plan. Something along the lines, because it's my job for the patient to understand that if something is ill, critically wrong, here's what can happen. This line just seems very CYA. Cover your A word that starts with behind. That's something that we use in healthcare, that term. So CYA. And so that immediately just sparks all of these red flags, and just to me just is just the first part. And then there says something else about the the pharmacy. So it says here, addendum, called family using interpreter and was immediately, let me see, sorry. Oh, here, okay. So CRP, AST, I know it says here, called family using interpreter and was immediately given to English-speaking sister to discuss patient. Called to update on notable labs, which was included on remarkable CBC, CR of 0.85, creatinine of 0.85, elevated CK, CPR AST, and it says, and get pharmacy, as realized did not have pharmacy on file for sending Zofran. Per family, they were headed to Tuality. So it says here about the pharmacy, and get pharmacy, as realized did not have pharmacy on file sending Zofran. My sister has only gone to Hillsboro Pediatrics, and we've been using the same pharmacy. Once I have my mom sign a release of information, and I get the paperwork, and I see all of these things. The second thing that, once I'm reading the first thing that popped in my head was the plan of care, and the second thing was the addendum note with the medications not being there, the interpreter not being there. What immediately pops, like, it's just getting angry, is the after visit summary. Mind you, my mom never got an after visit summary, and the after visit summary didn't have the plan, but it also didn't have the heart rate or the blood pressure. And I am so like, I am so upset right there in my mind immediately. Like, why is there no blood pressure taken on a 13-year-old who was dizzy, headache, vomiting, hemodynamics, right? And then no heart rate and no interpreter. Like, just immediately, like, I start just feeling all of this anger. Like, oh my mother effing God. Excuse my language. So what do? I went to Hillsboro Pediatrics that same day. And I have the release of information signed for my mom that I can get the records. I got in the mail the chart notes and the after visit summary, and no blood pressure. I see the addendum that was made that said my sister's heart rate was 78, but I don't see that the medical, at least not within the after visit summary, that it was taken in the after visit summary. And in healthcare, they use a system. The Hillsboro Pediatrics uses Aprima, and we use Epic. I've used Epic. There are ways around that things could get updated. The patient won't be able to see what was updated. So I'm immediately just red flags, red flags, red flags. I'm already having trust issues with the care taken, with everything that I found out so far. But I get there because I walk in because I want to see in real time what answer they're going to give me. I'm livid, mind you. So when I get there, I get to front desk, and the person, her name is Irene. I tell them who I am. I tell them that I needed to speak to someone because I got my sister's records, and I don't see that a blood pressure was taken or a heart rate was documented in the after visit summary. And they literally take about 25 minutes, maybe half an hour, for them to give me an answer. And guess who pops her head in immediately? Well, 10 minutes later. Dr. Gutierrez. We make eye contact. Is she wondering that there's going to be a lawsuit happening? Because my thoughts were already there. They weren't real, but I was definitely up in the air thinking about things because everything so far, I was livid. Things were not okay with me. So after that 25, 30 minutes, then they give me another copy of the after visit summary, and Irene writes down that the heart rate was 72, the pulse oximeter was 97, and the blood pressure wasn't taken. Do I believe that the heart rate was that and that it was taken at that time? No, but I don't have proof. So immediately just livid, and seeing Dr. Gutierrez pop her head out the front desk, making eye contacts, really only confirmed they knew they were going to have a lawsuit. I was still thinking about it. So I really start to think about, am I going to sue? I was the angriest at Hillsboro Pediatrics, but I was also angry at Tuality. I actually was so angry enough that I sent Tuality I get a BS response from a patient coordinator that basically says it wasn't their fault. They say myocarditis was rare after reviewing. There wasn't anything wrong. Like heck, there wasn't, mother effers. So livid, just really thinking about how somebody's just able to just this can't just be ignored. So I need to have a meeting with somebody, and I need to talk to somebody because already I'm thinking about change. This will not happen to somebody else, somebody who doesn't have a voice. Because if I got anything with my privilege is working in healthcare is if there's something wrong, we got to do something for change. And you got to make it uncomfortable. You just got to keep making uncomfortable until they listen. So time goes by. Somebody was willing to meet with me. It wasn't the person that I was requesting, but it was an ER doctor. And, they tell me that they already made some changes because I told them from the beginning, this is about patient safety. And here's my concerns. Here's what happened to my sister. And they did do some changes. He said that the registered nurses were now going to be at the front of the building to help stage and triage. And to me, I'm like, great, that's a first step. And then I was finally able to meet with the chair board, at Tuality. And we met on December 9th, 2020. That was going to be Andrea's 14th birthday. That was a significant date to me. And things happened for a reason. A lot of surprises happened at that meeting. So I talked about my experience with my sister in the lab. I talk about how the symptoms that she was declining, the short of breath, the anxiety, how she talked to somebody that told them that Andrea was the last patient, and instead of giving them a wheelchair and assessing or calling a medical emergency, that she just told my sister Jasmine that she could get a wheelchair herself. All of these people seemed surprised because some of them said they never heard this story, that I filed a complaint. And some of them were shocked when I explained to them, because one of them said, "Oh, well, if your mom needed an interpreter, I'm sure she would have gotten one." And one of the people on the board that was an RN, she agreed with me, that she said that, because I said that doesn't always happen, and she said that she agreed, and I, that answer doesn't surprise me. I'm well aware that people don't always get interpreters or get things, because healthcare unfortunately is a beast. It's so fast, and that's where some people just cut corners to get patients in and out. So I talked to the director of the lab, and I know her name, but I won't say it. Well, I'll say her first name. Her first name is Cindy. But she says that she had no idea, because that was originally the person that I wanted to talk to, that all of this had happened, and she looked shocked as well. So after that meeting, I know it was very powerful, because some people cried and some people just seemed shocked that my mom thought that was gonna, my mom was unaware that that wasn't the ER, or that, when you go into clinic setting, that there needs to be a policy for a medical emergency response. So after everything's said and done, yes, I was heard. I can't get my sister back, but I needed to have that change for somebody else. And I remember that Cindy walked me out to the building. She did apologize, and she said she didn't know what happened, but I was livid. I was in my car and just thinking, I had a effing push to talk to all these people to be heard. This is the board at Tuality, the medical board, some of the upper management who get to make the decisions, and they are the ones who structure policies. And for me to get told that these people were not aware of what happened to my sister, or that my request to speak to at least one of them, that blew my mind. Like, so supposedly I got a letter that says, we reviewed what happened to your sister, and it's not our fault. Your sister died of something rare, and that the policies were followed. Like, a BS. Okay, BS. I'm trying not to swear, but then for all of these people who can make the rules or change the rules for patient safety, they're fighting this out. Like, I was just enraged. I was so off that if I were to just let that go, they wouldn't even know. So, okay, now I'm really, really off, because I'm still in pain, and I'm figuring, like, I'm just really starting to think that I need to sue. Not for money. I can't get my sister back. I'm gonna see her one day, but I told her she's gonna save somebody else's life. We can't keep healthcare the way it is with the rate that we're going. So in order to change, I needed to sue. I finally talked to someone that I felt like really heard my story and was going to represent it, that I trusted. His name is Scott Levin, and from day one, just professional. And he works with another lawyer named Stephen Voorhees. And they saw my sister's case, and they told me that they were going to take it on. So we officially submit a lawsuit in 2022. So about a year and a half, almost 2 years after my sister's passing. And we don't talk about my family. We decided to just keep it to ourselves. We're not going to tell anybody else yet. We're pretty private. So I had been looking at Tuality and Hillsboro Pediatric's websites, just because, I had my suspicions, and I just knowing healthcare, it really helped me understand things. So I constantly would look at, Kelsey Jo Moss's information. Initially, before, closer to 2020, after my sister's death, her information had said that, she joined Hillsboro Pediatrics in early 2020. And it said that she, like, her profile on the Hillsboro Pediatric website said that her spoken languages were English and improving her Spanish. That got taken down in 2022. Now, here's what else is interesting. So, in 2021, Hillsboro Pediatrics did not sponsor the Oregon Health Justice Center. That was the Oregon Health Justice Center. It looks like it was founded in 2017. So the sponsor, Hillsboro Pediatrics, didn't sponsor them as well until 2022. Here's the picture of Kelsey Jo Moss and one of their events. Looks like from August 2nd, 2022. So, the Oregon Health Justice Center is a nonprofit law center focused on improving patient health through trauma-informed legal care and medical legal partnerships. I'm sure their cause is great. Like, I am not trying to say anything bad about that, but how convenient. How convenient. So you get, they decide to sponsor an organization that works with lawyers. And Kelsey Jo Moss also became a board member. It looks like she is their president currently. She's a board of directors. And again, right, I'm not trying to discredit the program. I'm sure it's great. But she's been working since, 2022 with lawyers, knowing that there's going to be a lawsuit. Take that as you will. I just start looking at things and just, keeping tabs or just wanting to know, because at this point, I'm already convinced that there was negligence with my sister. Like, I don't necessarily need more. I mean, I do need proof, but at this point, with everything that my family has told me and how it happened and what I see in the documentation, I am convinced that there is negligence, and that I question the documentation immediately. Working in healthcare, I've seen things. I've seen people document things that haven't happened. There's templates, right? And again, I am not trying to out anybody, but any position, if you ever worked with, there's people that are going to cut corners. There's people that are, overachievers. There's people that are lazy. There's people that are racist. There's that doesn't change because they went to a certain school. So I've never had a deposition, and I remember that I would constantly ask my mom. For me, it was really hard because seeing my dad and my sister and my mom unstable was really hard. If it was just me, I would go through the lawsuit. And there was a time where I actually told my lawyers, I don't know if I can go through with this, just because of how my dad was. He was pretty much at the point where I didn't know if he was going to wake up or if he was going to kill himself drowning. And I don't know if my sisters could bear not only losing a parent, but my sister Jasmine. I don't know how she would be able to handle that. It's a lot of trauma. But I asked my mom and I asked Brenda, we would ask each other. We would communicate a lot. I'm really thankful for that. I remember telling my mom, hey, because I remember my dad, he wanted to sue, but he would drink himself sometimes. Like, he would, there was a time where he was just gone. Many times he would be coherent a lot, but he would just be gone most times. And I would ask my dad, my mom and Brenda, and they said, yeah, I want to go through with this, knowing very well that it would be hard. So October 27th, 2023 is when my deposition and my mother's deposition was scheduled. What I do want to talk about before this is the two lawyers that represented Hillsboro Pediatrics and Tuality Healthcare, just because I don't have any respect for them. And I also am making this video to expose what they do to other people. So let's talk about Aaron Potter first. Aaron Potter is a seasoned lawyer that's represented OHSU. OHSU is now owns Tuality Healthcare, and let me just pull this up here. Excuse me. So I didn't know much about I didn't know them before this. So Aaron Potter looks like he's been a lawyer, at least in Oregon, since 1999. At least that's what his bar number says. And on his website, on the what his profile says is Aaron defends complex civil litigation cases with emphasis on medical and dental malpractice, personal injury, wrongful death, and general liability. Aaron has tried and arbitrated cases in Oregon and Washington. Aaron routinely represents physicians, dentists, physical therapists, nurses, and other healthcare providers before professional regulatory and licensing boards in both Oregon and Washington. Aaron also provides legal counsel to medical clinics and advises healthcare providers on health laws, issues such as privacy, HIPAA, high-tech, Stark Law, and anti-kickback statute. Aaron also counsels medical providers and clinics and practice management issues, contractual disputes and drafts, and negotiates contracts. Aaron has served as Hart Wagner's HIPAA privacy and security office since 2014. So a lot of experience. That falls short on what my experience was with him. Now, let's talk about Jeff Young. So, Jeff Young, who works for Lindsay Hart, the other one worked for Hart Wagner. So, Jeff Young, and I'm going to talk a little more about him because I saw more of him than Aaron Potter. So, on his website, Lindsay Hart, or the Lindsay Hart law firm, here's his mugshot, or his picture, and basically it has him happy and smiling. Looks fine, right? Looks safe. I didn't get him at all like that. I got the complete opposite of that guy. I got the complete opposite of Aaron Potter as well. So I'll talk about that later. So Jeff Young. Jeff is a trial attorney with a proven record of success in all aspects of civil litigation and has tried many cases in both Oregon and Washington. Coming from a family full of physicians, that's right there what really I when I was reading his information, what kind of stood out to me. Coming from a family full of physicians, Jeff has unique insight into the defense of physicians and other healthcare providers in medical malpractice and healthcare licensing cases. Jeff also represents businesses and companies in complex commercial disputes and contract drafting and negotiating, and brings significant experience and strategic insights to protecting his clients. Jeff is a native Oregonian and proud double duck with law and bachelor's degrees from the University of Oregon. Jeff is a member of numerous professional organizations and has authored and contributed to several publications, including The Verdict and publication of Oregon Association of Defense Counsel and Oregon Statutory Time Limitations, a joint publications of a professional liability fund and the Oregon State Bar. He served as a member of the House of Delegates, which aids in governments and Oregon Bar. So he's experienced, because it also says here that he's listed as the best lawyers in America and has worked with medical malpractice law, defendants, and commercial litigation, and super lawyers of medical malpractice defense and professional liability defense. So experience. And I'm sure Aaron also might, I wonder if he also comes from physicians that he knows, because you do have to kind of know healthcare to be able to defend it. But the reason why I want to point this out is I felt a lot of things in my deposition that really angers me if that's what they do to win cases. So, okay. They're gonna get lawyers that are partners, in a malpractice lawsuit, especially with the plaintiff, one of them being a registered nurse. They're gonna get people that are good at what they do. And I wanna let you know that Jeff Young has never had a complaint for the board, and that angers me because I still think about the skills that they do, the things that they do. If that's what they did to me, if they do that to anybody else, it makes me sick. So, a little bit more about Jeff Young. Here's his LinkedIn. They love LinkedIn, by the way. They look LinkedIn, and I also want to say that I can't find a lot of the people that were on the defense witness list, their LinkedIn. So, what a coincidence. Anyways, so I'm just going to put up a few things about Jeff Young up there. And before I do start, let me just tell you, in retrospect, what resources can get you when you're talking about big malpractice law firms. When it comes to a facility having deep pockets with malpractice insurance and being able to pay somebody that, can essentially defend you and try to get the verdict that's in their favor. So, okay. So here is the courthouse. This is where the trial is going to be in the Multnomah County. And here is the Lindsay Hart law firm. It's within walking distance. And they're in the Wells Fargo building. So not too far from Multnomah County. And then Hart Wagner is a little farther down over there. But you're able to, it's relatively close to Portland Multnomah Courthouse. I have so much respect for the lawyers that represented my family. I have nothing but respect. So professional. But when it comes to resources, it definitely was a David versus Goliath type of thing. So my deposition and my mother's deposition was supposed to be basically a one-day thing, starting at 9 a.m. And what my lawyers told me was speak your truth. They never said, say this, don't say this. They said, speak your truth, don't lie. And they also said, if you don't remember something, don't try to guess. Just, if you don't remember, tell them that you don't remember. I've never been through anything like this, so I didn't know what to expect. So I chose to go first before my mom, just because, again, none of this is easy. We didn't do this for the money. We did this for change. But it's still just bringing back all that trauma. It's never going to get better. It's always going to feel like a knife to your heart or like a punch in the stomach. And so just talking about it over and over and over again and over again, like, think about your worst nightmare. Whether you've lived it or you've dreamed it, it was an actual nightmare. Just think about having to go through that over and over and over again. So my lawyers had asked them if we could meet in person, and they declined. They wanted to do it through Zoom. I feel like I know why, but I'll explain it later. So my turn goes first, 9 a.m, and immediately I could just see their experience. Like, at the beginning, when they, like, first it was Jeffrey Young, who is representing Hillsboro Pediatrics. And he starts to ask me a lot of questions, not only detailing the events, and also we spent a long time on my LinkedIn, going through my education, going through my work experience, and just having questions repeated. Like, I remember I early on, it was like, I answered this already. And then he had said something along the lines where he didn't understand why I didn't give Hillsboro Pediatrics a chance to for them to explain themselves, or to give them a chance, because when I had written to Tuality Hospital and met with the boards there about change, and I mean, I was with all of that, but I was more at Hillsboro Pediatrics, so I don't owe them an explanation. It's my legal right to sue. um so they're asking me questions, and just they have this skill of making you doubt if what you remember was what you remember. And it took a while for me to figure out, like, they were enjoying my pain. Like, I remember them asking me about Andrea, and I think it like I remember when he would have this face. So I showed you the picture of him smiling on his LinkedIn and his law firm. Jeff Young has this face where he tries to intimidate you. Like, if you were to stare back at him, he does this, like very um and they also do this thing where it took me a while to catch on, but they stare at you uncomfortably. He did this to a juror that I will later put a audio tape on, but they make you doubt yourself. And again, it took me a while to catch, to really understand that that's what was happening. Now, he asked me a lot of questions, and like making it like, when I was saying this is how it happened, like, then they would ask me the same question, and then basically when I was saying, like, that I didn't live with my parents, how long had it been since you had seen them? And then Aaron Potter later would say, but you said this. And then I'm like, ugh. It took me a while to really understand that they, like, were literally enjoying my torture. So all of that, the first leg with Jeff Young, probably took anywhere from like 4 to 5 hours. Now, mind you, we took about 20-minute lunch, and we had an interpreter on the Zoom, because it was supposed to be me and my mom to have that deposition, not just me. So then it was after lunchtime. Jeff Young still asking me questions. Then next goes Aaron Potter. And when I talk about Tuality and how, I talked about how everything was basically like, how can you know that? Like, how do you know that? You weren't there, Like, I told them that what Jasmine had said about them asking the lab that that they had asked for my sister for the wheelchair, and that they had basically told Jasmine to get it herself. And then I said, oh, well, it looks like they were closing. And they're like, how do you know that? And then I said, if they were short staffed, that's still not a good enough reason. And then he was like, how can you know that? How can you know that that's how short staffed? Because then I would say, in my experience, and then they would be like, but at that organization, how do you know? They were just very much like trying to make it seem like the concerns that I had was not standard of care. Like, it, all of my concerns, it's like, how do you know that? Right. And it took a few, I remember that while I was talking to Aaron Potter, Jeff Young's screen, because this was all Zoom, his went blank for about a minute or two. And then I was like, this is probably why you wanted to be on Zoom. Like, you guys could literally take turns to talk to somebody else. Like the resources that you guys have with, you can call somebody, find something out for you. It just clicked immediately. Because I think I talked to Jeff Young for about 3 hours, 3 hours. And I had already talked to Jeff Young for 4 hours. And then it was Jeff Young's turn again. Mind you, I'm stressed out. I'm dehydrated, like all of these things. And I remember that Jeff Young asked me, or I had said something about my experience when I was reading my sister's, um, the visit notes, how it didn't add up. And I said, the provider likely used a template because this doesn't make sense. And he goes, how can you know that? How do you know that? And I said, unless they spent half a day typing all of that, because that was like 8 pages, they're probably using a template. And, he moved on to something else. And then when I told them about, my father being where he is at that moment, real quick online, they're on Zoom. He says, in so-and-so date, looks like this also happened. And I'm like, again, it clicks to me. This is why they wanted Zoom. They didn't want to have my deposition in person. And they could just keep going and going and going, taking turns like that while they're getting their resources. And I just remember as I'm crying, like, my thought was, it's not about what's right or wrong. Clearly, they have a job to do to represent their firms. Because I remember my lawyer at one point said, how long is this going to be? We haven't even gotten to her mom yet. And Aaron Potter goes, we could stay here all night. That says we can stay here all night. Of course, that made me laugh because I was like, this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me to get tired. I remember that Jeff Young asked me, why didn't your mother take your sister to the ER? That mother effer. I tried so hard not to say what I wanted to say because I wanted it. I said, that's not my mother's job to take her to the ER. That was the provider's job. And he did this. Like, I knew and he knew that I was right. He changes the subject. Now, again, right? They're trying to say like what my mom or what Brenda or whatever didn't do, or like I remember almost the 9 hours into it, then we were getting into the lawsuit. And I remember needing a break and asking my lawyer, saying, why are we going through all of this? And, he said, they could just be hours, or like, they were clearly enjoying my pain. Like they were like it was, I was just thinking about how this must be what they do. Like the experience and the skills, like it was not their first rodeo, and it angered me later on because my mom was outside of the room listening to all of that while she's getting so much anxiety. She said she kept having to go to the bathroom, waiting for her turn. And I did tell them about, it was my neighbors who at some point saw Andrea and wanted her to go to the hospital as well when they came to the, they went to the, when my sister couldn't walk anymore. And I'm going to have a interview with them later on because, what you're going to find out is that at another deposition, they're going to switch it to, oh, it was a sudden change. Andrea suddenly had this turn. It was night and day. And that was not the case. So I just remember towards the end feeling tired, but I'm not going to let them see that they were breaking me. So we kept going. And when we were looking at the lawsuit and all of the motions and the jargon, they were literally asking me like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And in my head, I'm like, you're the lawyers. Like, why do I have to tell you? You know what that means. But it was just a game. Like, it was just clearly, I'm like, whatever, I have to go along with this. It's their deposition, my deposition, and they're questioning me. And I remember at some point during my break, because my lawyer, when he said, how much longer? And Aaron Potter goes, maybe if she wouldn't stop taking breaks. And then my lawyer goes, it's about 9 hours of deposition, and she's had a total of less than half an hour of breaks. And I just remember like just seeing the pettiness that these grown men, these grown defense lawyers, I was 32 at the time with my first, deposition. And when we were reading the lawsuit jargon, I knew that they were trying to make me feel incompetent because there were some words that I didn't understand. And I remember just, you know, reading it slow and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a slow reader." Jeff Young rolls his eyes like this. I'm like, yeah, anyways, so it was a lot of pettiness. So it was a little bit after 7, and mind you, the interpreter's still on hold waiting for my mom. And we all decided that we were just going to stop after a little bit after 9 hours. As soon as we stopped the camera, like the Zoom call, just like the adrenaline rush goes away, and I get this immense headache, feeling like I want to throw up. Oh, I do want to say before I talk about the next steps, something that Aaron Potter did that I was just like, you told, like, this is what you must do. Like, they're so good at making you question yourself. Like, when it took me a while to understand, like, they were repeating the questions. I was like, they're like, you said this or you said that. And I'm like, but you keep asking me, like, at the end he goes, oh, we're going to get all your call logs, or we're going to look at your mess. I don't know what he said. And I was just like, and like, what are you like to me, I'm just like, it was very much like a happy, like, ooh, we're gonna do this. And I'm like, my immediate response in my head was like, hang on, we're not on trial, your client's on trial. Like, why, like, how is it that you are trying to, like, make, like, is this the skill that you guys have? Like, I just thought of like other people, like I mean, no disrespect when I say this, but I thought of like domestic violence or like rape victims when, they go through this trauma and you have some asshole gaslighting them, like, oh, like that feeling like you did something wrong. Like, I thought about it later on and I'm like, that makes me sick. So anyways, we end the call and the Zoom call, and my head is just like, I just remember like feeling like I was hungover or just completely dehydrated, because I just thought, they're going to do this to my parents. They're going to do this to my sister, my dad, who's pretty much suicidal, my mom, who she was here and we just wanted to get it over with. She has to come back. She was clearly like traumatized. Like, she just kept going in and out of the room. And my sister Jasmine, like, I love her to death, but she's not the same. She is like I said, like Britney Spears, Amanda Bynes, and I don't hold them any, like, I don't judge them at all for any of this. Like, I just can't imagine. Like, I have so much pain, and then I think about the pain that like my parents have, and I'm sure it's way worse. So all of that effing angers me, and this is why, again, I'm doing this. I if it could help somebody in the future, like, to expose like what happens in depositions, I want people to know, because I didn't get those people that are like this and smiling in their in their mug, in their portraits that they post online. I got people that were enjoying me crying. I got people that were like narcissistic and like, and I'm like, I can make fun of myself. If you're picking on me, that's fine. My immediate response was, they're going to do this to the people that are broken. And I don't know if that's what I can handle. Like, again, all of, like, nobody, we were not suing for money. We were suing for change. I would never wish any of this to anybody. So, yeah. So that was my deposition, and I was a little broken afterwards. And then I talked to one of my lawyers about 2 weeks later, and I asked him about, how they can do stuff like how Jeff and Aaron could do stuff like that to people. And my lawyer said that they could never do that in front of a judge. Like, the deposition is probably going to be the worst part of the trial, and it's going to be easier in the actual trial. So when he said that, I was like, okay, like that makes sense. And so the worst part is probably over. They can't do that in front of a judge. They can't do that in front of a jury. Okay. And that's true. Like I found that later on, like the complete opposite of like what I experienced. So it wasn't until I think March, because they have other lawsuits that and other cases, other trials that they have to do. So before I move on, and I might periodically do this just because the more I talk about it, the more like things I'm getting back in my head. Here's what these just went all of it with me. The very next day, one of these they messaged my lawyer basically saying, when do we schedule Martha, my mom? When do we schedule Martha's deposition? And the reason why that makes me sick is we were there. We already were there to be deposed. And you chose to do what thing you did to make mine longer. Now, my lawyers have to respond to that. Like, you have 2 weeks before the other lawyer can say to the judge they are being non-compliant. So just think about that, right? Like, they know what they did. They I'm sure that's what they wanted to do, was break us. And they're making it seem like, oh, let's schedule the mothers. She already the daughter had to endure the day before, but you have 2 weeks to give us a date. Otherwise, we can tell the judge that you're not, that you're not being forthcoming. Such games. Anyways, so we said whenever it's needed, whatever, right? It wasn't until March of 2024 that my mom, and this one is in person now, we met at one of our lawyers' law firms, and it was Jeffrey Young and it was Aaron Potter coming in, and we were all sitting there. I, of course, am sitting there. It's not my deposition. It's my mother's deposition. She has an interpreter. And my first thought was, please, 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 please don't be like they were to me. Don't be 9 hours. Don't, like that's my immediate, like they can only be strong for so much. And luckily they were more respectful towards her. But they were still, they asked my mom about things. One thing that I remember clearly, Aaron Potter, was where I held back. I'm like, I know I can't do anything. I can't telling him things, but I remember when my mom, when he would ask her things, like he was like, in the lab, I told you that, my mom, it's like, talk to us like we're like, she doesn't work in a lab. She's not going to say, if you talk to her in medical jargon, like, did you do this, or in the elevator, did you go to, my mom was trying to answer to the best of her ability. And I remember he was just being so condescending. He was being condescending to me at my deposition, but it's like, I get it. Like, I worked in healthcare. There's a bunch of sharks there. That's nothing new. But he was doing it to my mom. Not only is it traumatic for her, but I remember he would respond to her in like a condescending way. Like I said, my question was this. And that just made me boil up so much. So Jeffrey Young and Aaron Potter were a little more respectful to my mom, but they are still. And here's something that really bothered me, that I really want to just, whoever is going to be in a trial, I really hope, like, I remember as I'm disassociating, because I have to disassociate sometimes to go through all of, my testimony. You'll be able to really hear the story. But as my mom's telling it, and I'm just disassociating, thinking about what Andrea was going through, as I'm doing that and I'm holding my phone, like that Apple Jeffrey Young is literally staring at my mom like this, and Aaron Potter staring at me, just watching me disassociate. And I could see him disassociate, but not in like a, oh, is she fine? More in like a, what could I get out of her? What is she thinking about? Like, and I just remember looking at him like, you're such a effing D-bag. Like, the fact that you guys get joy out of that, like, it, ugh. So, anyways, I started back at him, and I'm like, it was clear to me, like, this is what you do. and they've worked together before. Like they they have two big law firms near the courthouse, and I did ask for their trials that they've been in, but so it was just a lot of games, a lot of just, and everything that I thought about, just tell your story. It was like, it doesn't matter what our story is. Clearly they have a job, and their client, they're trying to represent their client and set them free for whatever, they're being accused of. They're not here for me and listening to my story. Like, here's another twisted part that I really want to talk about, because this was the first in-person meeting that we all had. So what's really twisted is that they can turn it off. Like, even though these people are condescending and try to be intimidating, when we're in breaks and they're talking amongst themselves, like, I'm sitting there in the corner, right? Like, and they're talking to within each other, like it's a mutual, like, my lawyers and their lawyers, like the parties, they're talking about their kids. They're talking about where they go or what they're doing on vacation, while I'm sitting here, like, about the loss of my 13-year-old sister, and just thinking about, it's like, I don't get to go home and turn off the persona. I don't get to say, this isn't, me anymore. I can be nice to this person now, or like, I can, go back to this, my kids or whatever, like, I don't have kids, but it's like, I'm here to, my sister died, my little sister child, and you're here talking about your kid and where they go to school. Like, no disrespect to that, but it's like, you don't know how hurtful that is. How, like, as I'm sitting there hearing all of that, and my mom's hearing it too. She can understand English. She can't speak it, like, keep a conversation, like, like, but she can understand that they have kids. And so I just want to point that out. That, like, that was like, that rip, like, that was just so, like, I'm just sitting there, like, just thinking about how twisted that was. Anyways, so luckily my mom, her deposition wasn't that long. It was like maybe 3 or 4 hours with an interpreter. And at least they were decent enough to not put her through what they put me through. So I do want to say something that solidified my mindset of, we're doing the right thing at that deposition, and why I'm really proud of my mom, like, how amazing and strong she is. So once we're done with the recording and the deposition and the questioning, my mom had this to say to Jeff Young and Aaron Potter. And I'm so proud of her. Like, so with the Spanish interpreter, she tells this to them. She says, you guys are parents, and I know that if you were in my shoes, you would be doing the exact thing I would be doing. And let me just tell you, as I'm sitting there almost smiling, I'm staring at them. They can't look at her. They can't talk. This is the first time I saw Aaron Potter have a soul, almost. This is, Jeff Young, I kind of saw a little bit sometimes, but they couldn't look at her. And I knew that right there, it's like, we're doing the right thing. Like, I just remember them like this, like, and Aaron Potter was like this, like, and then Jeff Young actually looked ashamed like this, like, just imagine. I know that they would be doing the exact thing. And the lawyers, they know what's right and what's wrong. And that, to me, like, that just solidified that we were doing the right thing. So, Mom, I'm so proud of you. My mom doesn't have a higher education, but she's very wise and very strong. So, so the next deposition that we do, which is the last one, is in May. And that's for the rest of my sisters. So that's for Brenda, so Sandra, Brenda, Jasmine, and Evelyn. And immediately because, the more we're going through this, the more Jeff and Aaron are asking, like, okay, we're going to depose these people. We're going to depose these people. And so after my mother's deposition, they were going to deposition. They hadn't even depositioned, like my lawyers haven't even depositioned the lab tech or the, or Hillsboro Pediatrics. But, we're being compliant, and they, before I get to my sisters, it looks like they were going to deposition the lab tech and Hillsboro Pediatrics at some point, like in April, late March and April, because my sister's deposition was in May and the trial was in June. And we had the burden of proof, right? Like, that's what kills me. Like, they can immediately, like, just say no, like, oh, deny, deny, deny. So at the lab's deposition, it was pretty much like, we didn't see anything. They vomit all the time. Like, there's nothing that we could have done, or like, we didn't see her vomit more. Like one thing that me off is that supposedly, so Tuality at the time, they did have a medical emergency response. For when someone, I've worked in all the settings that I've worked in, we've always had a medical emergency policy in place. You don't have to be a nurse to determine that somebody's unstable and needs assessment. And if all you have to do is take them to the ER or call 911. So according to them, Tuality, because the lab was across the street, it was considered outpatient. So according to Tuality, they didn't have a policy for medical emergency for outpatient, just inpatient. What a bunch of BS. Just want to say that. Because they did have a medical emergency policy response in place, but they said, oh, the lab's across the street. Like, give me an effing break. That's your way out. And all you have to do is deny, deny, deny. My sister couldn't walk. That was the last time that she walked. And later on, I'll tell you, I have a witness. Well, it's like my sister, I can only imagine what she went through. And this is why I'm doing this. So we make the hard decision because Tuality Lab just can say deny, deny, deny. Like, we didn't see this didn't happen. We see sick people all the time. We didn't have a medical emergency in place. So we had to make the hard decision, and we released them from the lawsuit because we have the burden of proof, and all they can do is deny that what happened. So good job, Aaron Potter. You did what you were hired for, but I do believe in karma in this life or the next. So this is what I'm doing here. For Tuality Hospital, for Hillsboro Pediatrics, they interviewed Kelsey Jo Moss, Sarah Ewan. They deposed Sarah Ewan, the medical assistant, Terry Mullen, who was the administrator at the time. They subpoenaed, I think, Terry Mullen. They also subpoenaed Dr. Gutierrez, who is part owner of the clinic. She's the doctor that saw me when we made eye contact when I was asking for those records back in 2020 after my sister died. Forgot who else they subpoenaed. And so, yeah. So at the deposition of Hillsboro Pediatrics, from what I was told by my lawyer, is that at that, Kelsey Jo Moss admitted that she only spoke casual Spanish, and that supposedly, according to her, she said to her to go to the ER if she gets worse. She also admitted that she never said this to my mom. Now, that's not what she says on trial. She'll say something differently, but she said that at her deposition. She said that she didn't tell my mom this, only to my sister. Take that as you will. And it's like, what I had suspicion is like just slowly starting to be confirmed. Now, we also subpoenaed the audio trial. We also did an audio trail of the records. And at that time, what we discovered was that Kelsey Jo Moss addended her note, pretty much completely changed it the day after my sister died. Now, I'm going to put up a slide and I'm going to go through what I found, but pretty much it's like Dr. Gutierrez addended the chart. Patricia Hastings, I don't know who she is, addended the chart. There was a lot of things that were addended, not just Kelsey Jo Moss.